Hello students, welcome to British Columbia, the language school. Today I have brought the third and last part of your first chapter, A Living God. So we will begin from page number 11. Last time we stopped here, so we are going to start from this paragraph. But before we start, I would like to make a request. If you have not yet subscribed to my channel, please do, and don't forget to press the like button. Okay, let's begin. Through the twilight eastward, all looked and saw at the edge of the dusky horizon a long, lean, dim line like the shadowing of a coast where no coast ever was. A line that thickened as they gazed, that broadened as a coastline broadens to the eyes of one approaching it, yet incomparably more quickly. So now what happened? All of them started looking at the edge of the dusky horizon, means where the sea and the sky merge. They all started looking there, and what did they notice there? There was a long, lean, dim line, just like the shadow of a coast. Why? Because the sea was returning, and it appeared as if there was no coast ever. And as they watched, this line was also thickening and broadening, and it was all happening very, very quickly. For that long darkness was the returning sea, towering like a cliff and coursing more swiftly than the kite flies. This long darkness was the result of the returning sea. Why? The whole water had returned to the horizon, and it stood like a cliff, and now it was running more quickly, more than a kite that flies up the sky. Tsunami, shrieked the people, and then all shrieks and all sounds and all power to hear sounds were annihilated by a nameless shock heavier than any thunder, as the colossal sweat smote the shore with a weight that sent a shudder through the hills, and with a foam burst like a blaze of sheet lightning. Oh my God, now people realized this was tsunami, and they all shrieked. But now their shrieks and all sounds and power were destroyed, were annihilated, means all subdued by this nameless shock that was tsunami, and this shock was heavier than any thunder. And as this giant wave, colossal swell, means this giant wave, when it hit the shore, it struck it with such a weight that it shook the hills, and just like the blazing of a sheet lightning, it burst like a foam. Then, for an instant, nothing was visible but a storm of spray rushing up the slope like a cloud. And the people scattered back in panic from the mere menace of it. And due to this tsunami, due to the hitting of this giant wave, everything became invisible. There was only the storm of spray, which was also rushing up the slope just like a cloud. And people, out of panic, they started scattering just because they had seen the danger. They had the threat of it. When they looked again, they saw a white horror of sea raving over the place of their homes. When they looked again at the sea, what did they notice? The sea was still ravaging their homes, destroying their homes. And it drew back, roaring and tearing out the bowels of the land as it went. And as it was drawing back, it was tearing out everything from the land, as if it was tearing out the bowel. Twice, thrice, 5 times the sea struck and ebbed, but each time with lesser surge. And this sea wave hit the shore at least 5 times. And every time when it was ebbing and coming back, its power was just lessening or reducing. Then it returned to its ancient bed and stayed. And finally, it returned to its original place. Still raging as after a typhoon, but it was still raging just like after typhoon. On the plateau for a time there was no word spoken. Oh, everyone became astounded. They were all astounded. They were not able to speak a single word. All stared speechlessly at the desolation beneath. The ghastliness of the hurled rock and naked riven cliff the bewilderment of scooped up deep sea wreck and shingle shot over the empty site of the dwelling and temple. They were all speechless at the destruction that was caused by tsunami. So what did they see beneath? They saw the ghastliness, means the unpleasant sight of the rock and naked riven cliff. They also got confused to see the scooped up deep sea wreck, means the seaweeds, and shingle shot over the empty site of the dwellings and temple. When they saw the pebbles which were replaced by the houses and temple, means in place of houses one could see only the pebbles beneath. The village was not, the greater part of the fields were not. Even the terraces had ceased to exist. And of all the homes that had been about the bay, there remained nothing recognizable except 2 straw roofs tossing madly in the offing. The whole village was destroyed. It could not be seen. Even the greater part of field was also invisible, it also wiped out. The waves were so high that they even wiped out the terraces of the houses. And the homes which were near the bay, they were all vanished. There was nothing recognizable, nothing could be seen there. Only the 2 straw roofs were floating there in the outer part of the sea. The after terror of the death escaped, and the stupefaction of the general loss kept all lips dumb until the voice of Hamaguchi was heard again, observing gently, "That was why I set fire to the rice." All the people were terrified because they had a death escape. So they were all astonished to see the loss that had been done beneath, and they were all silent. And then only Hamaguchi's voice was heard again. He said, "This is the reason why he set his rice to the fire." He, their Choja, now stood among them almost as poor as the poorest, for his wealth was gone, but he had saved 400 lives by the sacrifice. Their Choja, the headman, the richest man of the village, was now as poor as anybody else, because all the wealth that he has invested in the rice field was all gone. But he had done it for a great cause. He had saved the 400 lives. Little Tada ran to him and caught his hand and asked forgiveness for having said naughty things. And Tada also realized, so he apologized for saying naughty things, whereupon the people woke up to the knowledge of why they were alive. People got to know that this is the man because of whom they were all alive today, and began to wonder at the simple, unselfish foresight that had saved them. They were all wondering over the unselfishness of this man, how farsighted he was, and he had saved them. And the headmen prostrated themselves in the dust before Hamaguchi Gohi and the people after them. So one after the other, very first the headman of the village started bowing down before Hamaguchi, and after him the other people of the village also did the same. Then the old man wept a little, partly because he was happy and partly because he was aged and weak and he had been sorely tired. Oh, this was the emotional moment. The old man started crying. He wept a little. Not only because he was happy, but also he was all tired, dead tired. He did a great job, great work. "My house remains," he said, as soon as he could find words. This was another act of kindness. He knew that people were homeless. So again he offered his own house to them. He said that my house is still there. Automatically caressing Tada's brown cheeks, and there is room for many, and just stroking gently to Tada's cheek, he said that there are many rooms for so many people. They can also stay there in his house. Also, the temple on the hill stands, and there is shelter there for others. And he said that on the hill there is also a temple. Some people can stay there also. Then he led the way to his house, and the people cried and shouted. They all could not understand how great this man was. So they started crying and shouting when the man went back to his house. So till here we got to know what did Hamaguchi do and what was the sacrifice, what was the incident that made him famous. Now let's read from here. The period of distress was long because in those days there were no quick means of quick communication between district and district, and the help needed had to be sent from far away. So that was the period. If you remember, I told you this incident took place around 1896. So that was very old time when there were no quick means of communication. So the help could also not reach early. So this distress period was very long. But when better times came, the people did not forget their debt to Hamaguchi Gohei. So when this period was over, when they got over this period, they could not forget the debt they were owing to Hamaguchi. They could not make him rich, nor would he have suffered them to do so, even had it been possible. So how they could pay him back? No, they knew that they cannot make him rich. Neither Hamaguchi would let them do it, even it had been possible for them. Moreover, gifts could never have sufficed as an expression of their reverential feeling towards him. And moreover, they could not give him any such gift which could be enough for how much they were feeling grateful to him. So what should they do to pay him back or to owe him? For they believed that the ghost within him was divine, because they knew that his soul, the ghost means here, his soul was all divine. It was not human, it was not like any human being, it was all divine. So they declared him a god. So just because of this, they called him a god, and thereafter called him Hamaguchi Daimyojin, thinking they could give him no greater honor. And from here, after this incident, they declared him that he is their god. And they called him Daimyojin, means the god. Thinking they could, and they knew that there could be no bigger honor can be given to him, and truly no greater honor in any country could be given to a mortal man. And for such an act of kindness, greatness, I would say, when you become a savior of life, nobody can pay you back. So this man was a savior of 400 lives. So what could they give him back? Nothing but to consider him to be a god. And from here we got to know the importance of the title of the story, a living god. He was a living man, mortal man, and he was in his life, during his life he was called as a god. And when they rebuilt the village, they built a temple to the spirit of him and fixed above the front of it a tablet bearing his name in Chinese text of gold. So when they again rebuilt their village, they also built a temple. Which temple? The man was alive. Now they built a temple and they believe that his spirit, his soul is there in the temple. And on top of that temple, they wrote his name in Chinese text of gold. And they worshipped him there. And they also started worshipping him with prayer and with offerings. How he felt about it, I cannot say. I know only that he continued to live in his old thatched home upon the hill with his children and his children's children, just as humanly and simply as before, while his soul was being worshipped in the shrine below. Now the author says that what did Hamaguchi felt, nobody knows or he cannot say, but the author got to know that he, even after the building of a temple below the hill or in the hill, in the village, he still lived in his old home, which was upon the hill with his all family members, and he still lived very simple life while his soul was being worshipped in the shrine below. He was living there and his soul was worshipped in the shrine, in the temple. 100 years and more he has been dead, but his temple, they tell me, still stands, and the people still pray the ghost of the good old farmer to help them in time of fear or trouble. So, after this incident, at least 100 years have passed since he died. Still there is his temple that exists. They tell me, means the villagers told the author that there still exists the temple. And people used to come to pray him, the soul of this good old farmer, whenever they need him or whenever they are in trouble. I asked a Japanese philosopher and a friend to explain me how the peasants could rationally imagine the spirit of Hamaguchi in one place while his living body was in another. Also, I inquired whether it was only one of his souls which they had worshipped during his life, and whether they imagined the particular soul to have detached itself from the rest to receive homage. Now, author wanted to know why they were worshipping his soul when the man was already alive. So he asked one of his Japanese philosopher friends to explain that what was their concept of soul, and he also wanted to know if one of the soul can exist in many places during a man's life, whether they imagined the particular soul, or they what was the people's opinion about whether the soul can be detached from the body and receive the homage which is given by the villagers. The peasants, my friend answered, think of the mind of a spirit of a person as something which even during life can be in many places at the same time. Such an idea is of course quite different from Western ideas about the soul. Now his friend answered that the peasants believe that the spirit or the soul of a person can go to many places at the same time. And he also said that of course this idea might be different from that of the Western idea about the soul. Any more rational? I mischievously asked. Now the author asked him that can you give me some more logic? Well, he responded with a Buddhist smile. If we accept the doctrine of the unity of all mind, the idea of the Japanese peasant would appear to contain at least some admiration of truth. I could not say so much for your Western notions about the soul. Now, on this mischievous question, his friend responded with a Buddhist smile that yes, if they accept or they believe in the unity of all mind, if they believe in the principle that there is a unity of all mind, then the idea of the Japanese peasant could be to some extent, it can be considered as true. And then he said that he doesn't know much about the Western notions, what they think about, what the Westerns think about the soul. So this was the whole story, and we also got to know some interesting points, and also we got to know some of the life lesson that whenever the time of difficulty we face, we should be very bold and brave, should not lose courage, should be quick-witted, should be ready to sacrifice, and alert also. Hamaguchi was not an ordinary man. He was a man who had farsightedness, and he had the presence of mind. He immediately understood that there is going to be a great danger, and when he noticed it, he thought of a trick which was so amazing that it saved even every single soul. So this story is full of moral lesson that teaches us that we should also be ready to help everyone whenever there is any time, and this also shows that we should be unselfish. So that's all about the story. We will meet in another chapter. Till then, take care and bye bye.